United Athletics Flight 069, taking you from the rolling green-covered hills of Richmond, Kentucky, to the craggier climbs of Cedar City, Utah, and all the football you can handle in between. We're going around the UAC. Please enjoy today's in-flight entertainment, the Rev himself, Dustin Hilton. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Welcome aboard United Athletics Flight 069, taking you from the rolling green-covered hills of...
I have no clue why I decided to loop, so sorry about that. Anyways, welcome to what may be the last flight on around the UAC. Don't know yet. We haven't quite figured that out, but it's your boy, the Rev. I figured there was big enough news today we could go live and kind of discuss about what's going on with the state of the UAC, the WAC, and the Southland. Before we get started, let's do all the admin stuff. Of course, it's part of the FCS Fans Nation Network page. Like them on Facebook, follow them on here. I assume you're following them on YouTube if you're watching this. Also, shout out to Walk On Apparel and all our sponsors. So anyway, today, for those of you who may not be aware, SFA announced that in 33 days-ish, they will be joining the Southland Conference again, and leaving the WAC in all sports. So it's an interesting sort of thing. I'm going to tackle this from a whole bunch. First of all, I'm going to throw my favorite little person's comment up here about some South Carolina barbecue sauce goes great on crow. Kevin, here's the thing about crow, right? Crow is when you were wrong about something. And while I said it would be stupid for SFA to go back to the Southland, I didn't say they weren't going to do it. So just remember that. Anyway, so with everything that's going on, so SFA will be joining the Southland. Someone, and I want to stress someone, is going to be paying out $2 million in an exit fee to the WAC. By someone, it could be SFA, it could be the UT system. Somebody's, ponying up some cash to cover that move. But then there's also another interesting bit that I don't know the details on, and I'll get into that here in a second. But with the announcement today, tomorrow the Southland Conference football schedule will come out. And it's caused a lot of just sort of things going nuts with scheduling, because SFA also announced that they were dropping out of their home and home with Montana State. And I assume there's got to be some sort of contract buyout with that as well. So that's money to add on top of that. And to me, that's just a very, very dumb move. Because Montana State fans can travel. You're going to lose home revenue on that return game, because let's be honest, there's not a lot of fan bases in the FCS that actually go to road games, right? There's some, but unless you're getting one of those guys in the Homer Bryce, maybe selling 100 tickets, maybe 200 tickets, right? Where Montana State would have filled half of the damn stadium. And that's not an overestimate by any means. They do travel very well. Steve asked, this is actually a good question. Is there a UAC exit fee? No, there's not, because the conference affiliations are tied to the WAC and the ASUN. It's just that these two they've partnered together for the UAC. So there's not a UAC sort of conference membership where there's a fee or anything like that involved. So there's not any sort of exit fee there. So let's go through why this is both a good and bad decision for SFA, and I'm going to touch on it in a couple different ways. First, for the student athletes, there is the belief that with the compact geography that the Southland has, that this is beneficial to them in terms of their travel and being away from class. And I can see that and I agree with that. You go from flying for football, you go from flying to Utah. For basketball, you go from going to Seattle or going to Riverside, California, to keeping your games local. But you're also, if you look at some of these games, you go to Harlingen and Edinburgh for the UTRGV game, right? You go to Thibodaux and you go to Hammond for Nicholls State and Southeastern Louisiana, respectively. So then you're trading these 4 or 5 hour plane rides for 8 hour bus rides, especially in the case of going down to UTRGV. Probably six out to Hammond, 5.5 to Thibodaux, 5 to Thibodaux, somewhere in there. So I don't know if you're actually helping out with travel time there. Now, the nice thing is all these kicks will be in Central Time. All these tip-offs will be in Central Time. There's not the 10 p.m. games that we were seeing, and that is a benefit to the conference and to the student athletes. Also, too, there's supposedly a big cost savings with this versus having to charter planes and stuff, and I do absolutely can see the benefit to that. So if you're looking at those two things, then yes, this is probably the right move for SFA. But here's where I also too have a bit of disagreement on this, and let me go through this. And some folks, especially SFA fans, will agree. Some will disagree, but let's just kind of walk through it, right? The one thing we have to remember is that as much as we depend upon student athletes for college sports itself is a business, right? It is a money-making business. If anybody wants to deny that fact, you have your head in the sand. Okay, so if you look at SFA as a brand, and you look at the whole of Southland competition, this is even with the WAC losing GCU and the WAC losing Seattle, and after the WAC had lost New Mexico State and Sam Houston State, when you look at this from like the basketball perspective, it's definitely a step down. SFA actually increases the Southland Conference Massey rating or Sagarin rating by 2 points. Okay. When you look at football, the United Athletic Conference is probably the 4th, 5th best conference in FCS. But SFA as a 3-win team, sorry, I just shot my phone. As a 3-win team, increases the conference ranking again in Sagarin, because that's how bad the Southland Conference is overall at sports. So there could be benefit to SFA, because SFA could potentially, compete again where they had struggled in the United. But let's be honest here. The SLC has its own troubles too, and that's going to bring me to the third thing with this. It's all about perception. And I think there's two schools of how folks are looking at this, and you can probably figure out which school I'm in. I think there are big picture and little picture folks here. There are some alumni of SFA who are glad we're going back to playing schools like McNeese and Lamar, right? And there are some alumni who want SFA to strive to be like our former peer institution, and that's Sam Houston. Sam Houston had the benefit of being in the Texas State University system to help fund them. They have the benefit of their geography of the growth of Montgomery County, north of Houston. They had a visionary under their president, right? They had these things that helped them get to where they are, and now look at the trajectory they're on. And I'm not talking about just in performance football wise. You have to look at their enrollment, you have to look at their endowment, you have to look at all these things that they're getting gains from their conference move and moving up to Conference USA. And then now you look at SFA, who SFA has now joined the UT system, right? SFA has money there to support them. But now a lot of folks view this as a step back. And then you have to ask yourself, what happens with the rest of the college shift, right? Where does that leave SFA? Because SFA is not in a power FCS conference anymore. They're in a weak FCS conference. Does SFA get looked at if there's more movement? Especially if they put the money in to do things like renovate Homer Bryce, to put in a new practice facility, to do the right things. Does their position help them or hurt them? So let's look at these comments. So Jason said, McNeese plans to host SFA in football. Surprised, no, because I think McNeese plans to host SFA in everything, including the conference tournaments. But I mean, we probably will end up going to Lake Charles. I think it's our turn. Colby Carthel did win the SLC in his final season. I don't think that's right. I believe when SFA went to the when SFA went to the playoffs, they weren't in the SLC because their first playoff game was against Incarnate Word. But he did win the SLC, I guess, in the 2020 season, which really doesn't count because it was a shortened season. The fall championship, yeah. Completely forgot about that. So, I see Mr. Hammond is on. Yeah. So, yeah. And so, again, if you go on social media, you go on Twitter, you go on all those things, there's a lot of different views and takes. And some people I'm not going to say actually anybody is wrong in their view and their take, because I think everybody has their own opinion and their own perspective. But it is just alarming that folks felt the WAC was so unstable that they paid $2 million to leave this year when they wouldn't have had to pay anything to leave for 25-26. That to me is the biggest shock. And then of course the question is what happens with the WAC? And that's been asked about, right? Now, the United, I think, is down as football. The United Athletic Conference is down to 8 playing teams right now, although they added in West Georgia, but West Georgia, because they're transitioning, they don't really count for anything, right? But let's look at the WAC as a whole, and this will be a little bit more basketball than football, but you have to look at it this way. So for the WAC now, they have Abilene Christian, they have Charlton State, who's finally finished their transition into division. No, they have one more. This is their final season transition in Division I. So you got ACU, Charlton State. You've got Southern Utah, Utah Tech. You have got now California Baptist, UT Arlington, and then Grand Canyon is gone. Seattle is gone. Excuse me. I feel like I'm missing a team, and I can't think of who it is off the top of my head. But anyway, so the WAC you got Utah Valley as well. I can't believe I forgot about Utah Valley. So, you're going to so they have enough teams to still field a decent basketball conference, and the UAC would have enough teams for football. So I don't think I think they could have stuck around for one more season. I think they did panic. Somebody did say that, and there was a panic there. And I think they did. But then, of course, it makes you wonder if there's other moves that we might be hearing soon. Abilene Christian is been rumored to have been looked at. There's rumors that UT Arlington has been, for basketball, has been looked at from other conferences again, and they've moved around a shit ton. Let's just be honest. They have jumped around. There has been rumors. I mean, of course, everybody thinks Charleston State somehow is going to go FBS because of the A&M money. So there's just all these different what ifs within that conference. But do we think they're going to transpire in the next 30 days and would impact the 2024-2025 seasons? And that I don't know. So it's going to be interesting from that perspective. And I know there's a lot of what ifs and there's a lot of other things. But one of the things that I have to say this too is that the comments from the SFA AD and the president were crap. I'm just gonna flat say it. They were crap. All right. They have to walk the walk instead of talking the talk. And here's the other thing too. If SFA goes into the Southland and doesn't win in basketball and doesn't win in football, that's double egg on the face. For one, for moving down, and two, getting beat. And unfortunately, the Southland at the top of football isn't the cakewalk that it's been in recent years, because you do have Incarnate Word, who is still a hella good team, and you've got McNeese, who's looking to rebound. Then you look in basketball, you've got McNeese, who under Will Wade and his big ass strong ass contracts and stuff that he is known for, it's not the cakewalk for SFA to go back into. But of course, now they're going to be heavily scrutinized because they did make this move from what was the 14th best basketball conference to what is now or what was the 32nd best ranked basketball conference in Division One, and that's a big step down. So let's see some of these comments. Jim, my man, good to see you as well. Sorry, my mouse is just that. There it goes. Good to see you as well. What does Hammond say? This is a good one. The WAC needs to just add all the D2 schools out west for football. CSU Pueblo is actually, I think, a really good ad. Sorry, having some water. CSU Pueblo, I think, would be a great ad. I don't know if Western Oregon would be a great ad, but I think CSU Pueblo would be a good one. I think West Texas A&M would be a good one. I think Angelo State would be a good one. I think Midwestern State would be good ads. With SFA's, new AD having come from West Texas A&M, he did a lot of work there to grow that school and to get them to the point to where they could be Division One. And I think it would make sense for the WAC to start giving them a call and try to get them pulled up. Of course, too, I think one of the things that has harmed the WAC is that they got rid of Jeff Hurd as commissioner. Jeff Hurd was a football oriented commissioner. That's what he was 100% about. And when they kind of forced him out, brought in the new guy, and he's basketball, which is fine. But if you're trying to launch a football conference, it would make sense to have a commissioner who is about football. So that plus the 4 teams leaving, and then the team, and I guess 5 we count RGV, the Lamar not going, and or Lamar going back before after a year. McNeese not going, although they were rumored to, because McNeese ramrodded the Southland Conference and got everything they could have ever wanted when it comes to conference tournaments. Seven in Lake Charles, Incarnate Word staying in the Southland. There's all these things that I think probably set the WAC to fail from the very beginning. And it'll be interesting to see what they can do right there. Yeah. The thing that sucks me about this is Southland basketball is crap. With the exception of McNeese, the rest of the conference is absolutely fucking terrible. And their venues, with the exception of Lamar's venue at the Montaigne Center, is absolutely terrible as well. Houston Christian plays in a gym that could not hold my high school's graduating class in it. The University of New Orleans is now having to reduce their budget by 20%. And their budget was only $7 million. So now they're down to 5.6. If you do that math, that's ridiculous to even try to be a D1 school in that sort of budget. And then you've got the other schools, that just, they don't put the focus on, they put their focus on football, which is great, but they also don't have the funding to put their focus on a lot of other sports. And that to me sucks, because SFA, first and foremost, has always been a basketball school. It's what we prided ourselves on being successful at. That's why we have a $25 million basketball practice facility. That's why we've renovated and redone the Johnson Coliseum. There's all these things that our money went to, and then WAC basketball was the thing to have. It just sucks in that regard. But here's my hopes for SFA. I hope that SFA renovates Homer Bryce Stadium, because that stadium needs a renovation. It's bad, especially some of the stuff behind the scenes, with the concessions and stuff, and the fact that when it rains, water goes through plugs and stuff. It's bad. I hope that they either fund baseball or scrap it as a whole, and they need to figure out which one they're going to do there. There hasn't been any funding for SFA baseball since SFA relaunched the program back in the mid 2000s. And Johnny Cardenas just had a 3-win season last year and left SFA, retired from SFA baseball. And, he did what he did with a program where there's no money. They play in a freaking public baseball stadium, right? They don't have their own on campus or facility that they own. They play at the JC's Field, which is owned by the city of Nacogdoches. So you need to invest there to help around in all sports. football needs a practice facility. There's been rumors of an indoor practice facility, things like that. Every school that has built an indoor practice facility has seen the gains from it. And then they need to put the money in some of the other sports. They've really put a lot of investment in volleyball, which is great because volleyball has helped us out. But, Lady Jack soccer plays in just a piece of the intramural fields that have a wall around it and some bleachers, right? We do have men and women's golf. We have tennis. We have softball. All these programs need some love if you want to be a well-rounded institution. And with the money that we get from the UT system, there's no reason why this shouldn't be something that happens. Let's see. My buddy Reddit FCS is on. It says, what do you think this says about SFA's leadership's thoughts on the potential G5 third football subdivision split? For example, does Southland potentially present a better opportunity with the likes of UIW as individual games? Or do you think that holding out for potential summit create on the WAC might have been a better gamble? So that's a great question. And been a better gamble was on the next line. That's a great question. So to me, the only reason I see the move to the Southland is cost savings on travel and a bit of stability. That is the benefit. There's no other gain to it. There's no other, I mean, you're going to a week conference and there's no other gain there. So yeah, it begs the question if, I've heard rumors, and I'm just gonna say rumors, that there was a big bid to try to produce, a more centralized FCS conference that ran down the central time zone, right? Where, the travel from Texas and North Dakota would have been brutal, but it would have been easier than going to Utah, and all the kickoffs would have been on central time and things like that. It would have been as impactful on the body. I think there are things that they could have waited on. I think there are things that they could have tried. And it's really hard to tell what the new leadership wants to do because they're both our president and our AD are brand new. We know what McBroom's history is because we saw it at West Texas A&M. But our president, man, he came from a smaller school as well. And it's been interesting to see what the growth is going to be. So I don't know. I don't know if this is a temporary stop in the Southland to try to find something better, or a temporary stop to try to put in the things to get the money from the UT system to help, rehab and make our facilities to where they'd be FBS, a la what Texas State sort of kind of did with Texas State back in 2000, changing their name from Southwest Texas to Texas State, being the flagship of the Texas State University system and putting money in. I don't know. I think we have to wait and see. But I can tell you that I look forward to the games we had in the United Athletic Conference. I mean, Eastern Kentucky, Austin P were two fun teams to watch last year. Having our rivalry with UCA was always fun, and that's gone. Having the new rivalry that's formed with Abilene Christian is gone. Yeah, great. We get Northwestern State back, but we're not even playing for Chief Cato anymore. Northwestern State scrapped it. So the fun of that, the fun of a 7'6" tall trophy that was the biggest in Division I college football is gone. And so now, as to me as a fan, nothing about Southland football gets me excited to watch. I guess I can go to San Antonio and go see my buddies in the FCS Triumvirate poll at an Incarnate Word game, but I mean, it's not, I'm not going to actively travel around and go to a game in Beaumont or a game in Thibodaux or a game in Hammond, America, although Hammond isn't a bad place to go see a game. I would highly suggest any South Dakota State fans who are watching to go to that game. It was more fun to go travel to Utah or to travel to Kentucky, to go to these sort of places and see some different things in history. Yep, it does suck that SFA is going through it, but it's what it is. Thoughts on Southern Utah's tampering? I don't know on this, and I'm not going to say anything else because I don't know the full details. I've read the story. I'm not going to say anything because it's ironic because the Colorado State Pueblo coach put out a thing about the University of Colorado potentially tampering with one of their recruits, right? So I'm not going to say anything against Delaney Fitzgerald and Southern Utah because I don't really know the full details, right? whatever it is, NCAA decided to give them a punishment. They have to sit out on recruiting. They have to pay a small fine. I think in the scheme of things, it's not as damning as some of the other punishments that you'd see. But again, I don't know enough to say, hey, NCAA did the right call, or no, NCAA didn't make the right call. So I'm not going to touch that one. ASUN is trying to get West Florida and Valdosta State to move up. I don't think Valdosta State is one that's going to move up. I think West Florida will. And I think West Florida will because West Georgia did. And those two kind of go hand in hand as well. I think Valdosta State, and I could be wrong, and one of you guys in the ASUN would have to remind me of this. I don't think Valdosta State actually plays in their own stadium. Don't they play in the high school stadium there or something like that? Like it's not even their facility that they use. And of course that's a hard thing to do too, right? If you're trying to move up, and you aren't able to because your facilities aren't great. So I don't see that, but I do see West Florida, and man, West Florida would be one heck of an ad to have in there. So we'll see what happens. Of course, it's always great to add in these schools, but also to remember the whole transition rule sucks. And that is a bit of a sort of, I want to say damning sort of thing, but it does make it a bit hard to grow your conference whenever you go in there and you're going to have teams that are transferring up and they have to do 2 years. They have to do 2 years at their level, then 2 years at the new level, but they're not playoff eligible. They don't count for anything, right? They're just there. And so that rule, and I've said this before, that rule needs to be adjusted and fixed because that rule is really hot garbage. The fact that you're punishing a team for punching up is ludicrous to me. There's no need for that. And Tarleton State should have gotten to play in the College World Series this year. They won the WAC tournament. Instead, it went to Grand Canyon, the school who won the regular season bid, but there was regular season championship, but bowed out in the tournament. Same thing happened was it Bellarmine and the ASUN last year or 2 years ago in basketball, where they came in and whooped ass and won the tournament, and then they got replaced by Jacksonville State, if I remember, something like that. So there's such really dumb rules that hamper versus help. If we're just going to be honest here. So, yeah. So there's things that I like about the NCAA. There's things that I don't, and this is one of those things that I don't like. Is this rule? So yeah, and Steve, I think I am right. I believe it is that's how it is with Valdosta State, that they don't have the stuff. They don't have their facilities and things to move up. They would be a great ad though. They've had a fun program, but it's just not something that I think would happen. So there's a whole bunch of y'all on, and I really do appreciate that. I think we had at one point up near 150. We got 128. So now I've had this question asked a couple of times, and I'm going to try to answer as best I could. I did say that if SFA joined the Southland Conference, I would stop podcasting. That is something that I did say out of anger and and a little bit of spite. And I'm still not super jazzed about doing any sort of coverage for the Southland Conference. So folks have asked if I'm done podcasting, and the answer right now is I don't know. I can tell you that this show is probably done, although I might still potentially keep it to talk about the UAC, as I've been a big supporter of the UAC. But I don't know. One of the biggest things about that, I'm not even going to say myself, I'm going to say to folks like Matt, Kyler, Jamie, who do the Big Sunday show, folks like Zach McKinnell, who just commented right now, so the timing is perfect. The Blue Blood Tim and Coach Fred, folks like those shit shows on Hack City, who I love to death, Joe and Sean. They are the reasons that FCS media is able to grow. Sam Herder, can't leave the GOAT of FCS media off. Sam Herder, Kevin, who's on here, You got to include Craig Haley in that because of the stats top 25. There's all, granted, most of the folks who are covering these teams, aren't professionals. There are some who are, obviously, Zach, Blue Bloods, Sam, Kevin, right? But then the other ones of us are doing it out of pure love for the level and love of and wanting to grow the level. I mean, look at Jamie Williams. His team went on to go to rec shop in the Sun Belt, yet he is still covering the FCS. And he is still doing his 1 to 27 or 127 rankings, right? He's doing all these things, and maybe I should take a lesson from him on this because, even if there's something that I don't want to particularly cover, maybe it's something that I should do. And Zach, I'm going to pull up your comics. I hadn't seen it yet. If I saw a podcast, well, I did ask you if you were hiring for your mailbag, and you never answered it. No, but anyway, so there's more to come there. I don't really know what's going to happen with it. But I mean, stay tuned. Maybe I will cover the Southland. Maybe I'll make a show just shitting on the Southland. Maybe I'll just cover the UAC. Maybe I'll cover the Northeast Conference. Nobody's covered the Northeast Conference. There's lots of other things that need some love. I can't believe nobody has covered the Pioneer League. With the amount of non-schollies there, how do you not want to do coverage there? Anyways, so that's really been it with the news today. I'll tell you guys too, I wanted to do a live show around May 1st because that was the football equinox. And there was a lot to talk about, with movement, with, schools moving up, things like that. Poor Mercyhurst now has to play Montana State. That's brutal for them. And unfortunately we didn't get it done, but I would advise y'all. And again, I appreciate all y'all coming on to watch this because it is good to have some off-season content, but I would keep watching because I think you're going to, as we get through the summer, there's a lot of things that you can check out. Blue Bloods are going live like 3 or 4 times a week, more times than I can keep track on, answering your questions, discussing everything FCS. I know Jamie is working on his 1 to 127 rankings. I know folks are preparing for their shows. I know Jackrabbit Illustrated is doing coverage. And they just had some live shows here recently. The nice thing is that we're getting back to football, and football is a fun thing to cover. So it'll be interesting to see what covers shitting on the Southland with the what would be fun about that if I could get a toilet paper sponsor. That would be amusing. Or if I could get a I get one of the toilet companies to sponsor it to do it, that'd be even better. Get that shitter money. No, I agree. That's probably one of the best things. That guy's a clown. Like, I'm sorry. Here's my thing. Here's my beef with this guy. He said 3 years ago that SFA was right then going to leave the WAC. As soon as McNeese said they weren't going to stay, he said that I was told SFA is leaving the WAC, and SFA was like, no, we're not. Multiple folks at SFA said, no, we're not. So then Jim the next year said, I've been told that SFA is leaving the WAC. Multiple folks at SFA said, no, we're not again. So, it's like at some point something has got to stick. A broken clock is right twice a day. Every now and then you hit 00 on roulette, and he finally hit it, right? And so then now today he was saying, I called this 3 years ago. And well, no, my man, you didn't. You took a shot in the dark trying to say something was going to happen instantaneously, and it didn't happen. And my other beef with you, Jim, is if you see this, is if you're going to write an article in the Lake Charles newspaper about SFA, use the right fucking logo, okay? It's not hard to find the new logo. Don't use the one from 2012, okay? That's just, my own personal thing. I'm sure you wouldn't like it if we wrote something about McNeese and used an old logo, or used, I don't know, a flooded picture of the horseshoe or something else instead. Show a little respect, you clown. Let's see. What else do we have on here? No, I appreciate that, Steven. I appreciate you guys all coming on. It's been fun doing coverage through, through Waxen Weekly, and then doing around the UAC, doing all the stuff with Will and Brandon, who are now off doing bigger, things. Will's off trying to be a doctor. Brandon's teaching high school or doing high school band and stuff, both doing awesome things. And it was really awesome to get to do the shows with them, especially coming out of a really odd sort of time with COVID and everything else. So it's been fun for the past 3 years. And of course, it's been nice that Matt and the admins on the Fans Nation page allowed me to come on here and just talk shit. And so appreciate that. Thanks, Kevin. I joke with you all the time, but I really appreciate that. He said, take a bow. Outhouse emblem. Hell yeah. So it's watching, listening from Albany, Georgia. It's scary to find out they around the UAC will not stream live anymore after tonight, Wednesday, May 29, 2004. Looks like West Georgia may have to find a new home. No, I think West Georgia joining the ASUN is probably one of the best moves, especially if you get West Florida to go with you. The ASUN is tight. The ASUN's tight at all facets of the thing. Yeah, they lost Kennesaw State. Yeah, they lost Jacksonville State. But they've added in. They've supported their basketball. They brought in Queens. They brought in Bellarmine. They've done these moves to shore up that side. And they would still probably potentially, even if they were to lose like UCA somewhere, would still have the means to still manage to have a decent football conference. There's a lot of schools in that area that you could pull up. There's a lot of schools you could look at bringing in from other conferences, right? So I think the ASUN's fine. I wouldn't by any way, shape, or form worry about that by any means. Yeah, somebody said they'll be fine. They absolutely will be fine. Yeah, and here's the thing, the UAC isn't going away. And that's one thing to stress as of now. And I doubt it's going to go away in the next 30 days because you would need drastic movement to happen and folks willing to pay $2 million to leave the WAC right away, right? I don't see Abilene Christian doing that in the next 30 days. I think if Abilene Christian moves, it would be in the 25-26 season. I don't see Southern Utah going anywhere. I don't see Utah Tech going anywhere. There's been there had been rumors about like Northern Colorado changing around their conference affiliation and stuff. Maybe the WAC goes after them. There's all these little cogs and moving pieces that are going on, but I don't see the United Athletic Conference going away anytime soon. And I may pop in every now and then and do a little United Athletic Conference coverage. I don't know. It just all depends. Like I said, don't know what the plans are next, but we'll see what they are. And I see this comment. And the last comment, it looks like West Georgia may have to find a new conference home. No, you're not going to need to find a new home by any means. I'm just bummed we're not going to get to play you. I was actually looking forward to that game and checking out some new stuff, And then now the new schedule is going to come out tomorrow for SFA, and we'll see what games we lost besides all the United games and the Montana State game we know we've lost, and we'll see what happens from there. I'm really interested to see what happens in 2025 when RGV has their football team out. And then if let's say the Southland managed to snag someone like Abilene Christian back in, right? And then now look at the size of your conference. How do you split that up? You would have 10 football playing schools. Do you go into divisions where they don't play each other? Do you go into kind of what the Missouri Valley does, or the Big Sky does, where you kind of rotate things out and you still have your guaranteed like rival games? Like there's a whole lot of what ifs. And then of course it's going to bring any sort of question on is the best team, like Kevin likes to say, because they don't play everybody. So I don't know. I think at that point, honestly, yes, they all sit within a regional sort of thing. That's when a conference gets too big. Colonial CAA looking at you, Coastal, whatever you're called now, looking at you. All right, you are the epitome of that because you added every scrap you could find to join. Let's see. Say, hey Chad. No, like I said, I appreciate that, and like I said earlier, don't know what we're gonna do next. But what I do know is that the Dallas Stars are currently playing, and I turned this on to do this when they were up 1-0. We're gonna check that score real quick. 2-2. That game is been a very, very fun series to watch. So with that, I'm probably gonna go ahead and shut this thing down. So again, make sure you like and follow FCS Fans Nation. Most importantly, too, make sure you like and follow all the FCS media on all the social media. 150 y'all are watching this. I really appreciate y'all all watching this tonight. Like, follow, all those things. Support the FCS media. Support the national broadcasts we have. Support the regional shows. Like I said, watch the shit that you normally don't watch. Watch Jack Rabbit Illustrated. Listen to the J and Q show, right? Watch Fight on Montana. Watch there's so much awesomeness in the FCS, and it all needs your support. Whether it's FCS Nation Radio, whether it's Hero Sports, the Fans Nation, Blue Bloods, or even if it's down to a little show like Around the UAC. So with that, I'm going to sign off. I will see you guys somewhere, somehow in the fall. Y'all take care of yourselves, be safe, and we'll talk to you later.